I need you to stop what you're doing for a second because the biggest news in Bitcoin this year just dropped. And I know we say that a lot in this space, but this one actually hits different. For the first time in history, Fannie Mae, US government-backed mortgage institution that manages about $4.5 trillion in assets, just accepted Bitcoin as collateral for a home loan. Has gold ever had a moment like this? No. Stocks? No. Crypto or any other digital asset? Definitely no. Now, I'm a millennial, and if you're a millennial watching this, you know exactly what the housing market has been like for our generation. We were told to work hard, save our money, and that we'd be able to buy a home, and then we watched home prices double, and then double again during the pandemic. And while our salaries stayed flat and our dollars bought less every single year, the boomers had a system that worked for them. And by the time we showed up, the table was already full. So a lot of us made a different bet. We bought Bitcoin instead. And for years, we got laughed at. We got called delusional. We got the Peter Schiffs of the world telling us that it was worthless. It's a scam. It's going to zero.
Bitcoin is going to zero. Zero.
And the price was sketchy, and the bear markets were brutal, and sometimes it was genuinely hard to hold conviction. But we held. And now, the same financial system that shut us out just gave us a seat at the table. I'm Sophie. Welcome back to Satoshi. Let's get into it. So here's the full story. Fannie Mae, the government-sponsored entity that backs the majority of U.S. conforming mortgages, just approved a new product built by Better Home and Finance and Coinbase. It allows home buyers to pledge Bitcoin as collateral for a second loan that funds their down payment. You don't have to sell your Bitcoin. You don't have to trigger a taxable event. You just lock it up as collateral, get the loan, buy your house, and when the mortgage is paid off, you get your Bitcoin back. The numbers work like this. On a $500,000 home, you could pledge $250,000 in Bitcoin and receive a $100,000 loan to cover the cash down payment. The Bitcoin sits locked in a Coinbase Prime custody account for the life of the loan. Even if Bitcoin's price drops during that time, nothing changes on the loans, as long as you keep making the payments. The CEO of Better said it plainly. We have now created the infrastructure rails to enable any tokenized asset in America to be pledged to help someone buy a home. It starts with Bitcoin. And Coinbase called it a major first step to unlocking home ownership for the younger generations that have struggled with barriers to saving for a traditional down payment. Which brings me to something I genuinely can't believe I'm saying on a Bitcoin show. This might be the only millennial win in our lifetimes. We couldn't afford houses. We couldn't afford chairs. And we couldn't save fast enough. The dollar kept losing value while home prices kept going up. But if you stacked Bitcoin instead, Coinbase just ran a commercial that says it all.
In 2012, you'd need 30,000 Bitcoin to buy this house. A decade later, it had only cost you 20 Bitcoin. And today, it could be yours for 5. If home prices keep falling in Bitcoin, why do they keep rising in dollars?
In 2012, you needed 30,000 Bitcoin to buy a house. Today, it costs 5. That's not a speculative asset. That's a savings technology that actually worked, finally. Here's what makes this genuinely historic and why I want you to understand the weight of it. Fannie Mae is not a private bank. It's under the U.S. government conservatorship, meaning the federal government controls it. The Federal Housing Finance Agency, which oversees Fannie Mae, has been increasingly bullish on cryptocurrency.
Crypto has an enormous opportunity to help with the affordability equation. I mean, Bitcoin is a very stable asset in our view. Obviously it has volatility, but a lot of assets have volatility. And a lot of people have a lot of wealth in Bitcoin. And so we want to make sure that people have access to the American dream, and we're doing everything we can.
And when Fannie Mae approves a loan product, it means they will purchase those loans just like any other conforming mortgage. They're not just allowing it, they're buying it. This is the U.S. government through its mortgage backstop, officially recognizing Bitcoin as a legitimate financial asset, not as a speculative gamble on price, but as something stable enough to back a home loan. And think about what that means for the narrative. For years, the arguments against Bitcoin was it's too volatile, too speculative, not a real asset. That argument just got significantly harder to make because the entity that underpins the American housing market, the backbone of the middle-class wealth-building machine, just said Bitcoin is real enough to collateralize the most important financial transaction most Americans will ever make. Goldman Sachs said this week that Bitcoin might have bottomed. Wall Street's most prestigious bank, not a crypto startup, not a Bitcoin influencer, Goldman Sachs.
What are you doing at
He's a Goldman.
The institutions aren't just gambling on the price going up anymore. They're building on top of Bitcoin. And there is a very big difference between those two things. And if institutions are now buying mortgage products on top of Bitcoin, the question is whether your Bitcoin is actually yours. That's where the Bitcoin way comes in. Your personal Bitcoin IT team, self-custody training, cybersecurity, Plan B residency, over 20 years of expertise. They simplify the whole thing so that you stay in complete control of your stack. Book a free 30-minute consultation at thebitcoinway.com/simply. Tell them Satoshi sent you. Now I have to talk about our good old friend, Peter Schiff, because of course I do. Peter posted his reaction to the Fannie Mae news yesterday, and I want to read it to you word for word. He said, allowing home buyers to pledge Bitcoin as a down payment on a mortgage is a horrible idea, as it substantially increases the risk for lenders. If Bitcoin crashes, the down payment vanishes. That increases both the likelihood of default and the loss to the lender in foreclosure. Now, here's the thing. Peter isn't entirely wrong on the mechanics. There is more complexity in the two-loan structure. There are real considerations around volatility. Those are fair points, and you should understand them. But Peter Schiff has been calling Bitcoin a horrible idea since it was worth $5. He did a victory lap last year when gold was running and Bitcoin was in a bear market, and then last week, gold crashed 22% during a geopolitical crisis, the exact scenario that gold was supposedly built to survive, while Bitcoin went up 7%. And now Bitcoin is collateral for Fannie Mae mortgage, and Peter is in the comments calling it a disaster. At some point, you have to ask yourself, when does the guy who's been wrong about this for 15 years get to keep the credibility to call it a horrible idea?
No way. Not this time. No.
Now I want to shift gears because not all the news this week was good. Hong Kong just updated its enforcement rules under the national security law, and there's something in there that every Bitcoiner needs to know, especially if you travel. Refusing to provide passwords or decryption assistance to authorities is now a criminal offense. It covers all your personal devices, your phone, your laptop, and most critically, your hardware wallet. And this applies to everyone, including US citizens, even if you're just transiting through the airport. Your instinct might be to brush it off as a regional problem, but I want to offer a different frame. Governments don't build laws like this around things that don't matter. They don't waste legislative energy on assets that they're not afraid of. The EU is building surveillance infrastructure around self-custody wallets. Hong Kong is now criminalizing the refusal to hand over your keys. The US just backed a Fannie Mae Bitcoin mortgage. Three very different governments, three very different responses, but all of them treating Bitcoin as something that fundamentally matters. They wouldn't be doing any of this if Bitcoin wasn't a genuine threat to how they control money. And that's not a bug. That's the signal.
That's the signal! Go, go, go!
And if today convinced you that it's actually time to own some Bitcoin, here's the cleanest way to do it. Bitcoin Well is the self-custody Bitcoin on-ramp. You buy Bitcoin directly into your personal wallet. No custodial risk, non-custodial by design, trusted by 50,000 plus users, publicly traded, daily recurring buys available. Sign up at bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Through our link, you get 3 chances to win 1 million sats. That's 0.01 Bitcoin. Not nothing. Sign up at bitcoinwell.com/simplybtc. Let me bring this back to earth for a second. I think about what financial security looks like for me and my family more than I probably should, usually at 2 in the morning when I can't sleep. And I've been in this space long enough to remember explaining Bitcoin at dinner parties while people looked at me like I had two heads. And I've sat through bear markets, the headlines calling it dead, the family members asking if I'd lost my mind. And I held through all of it. Not because I had some genius level insight, but because I genuinely believed that everything was broken, including the money, and that eventually it was going to matter. And this week, it mattered. What happened this week wasn't just a headline. Fannie Mae accepting Bitcoin as collateral is a signal that the financial system, slowly, reluctantly, institution by institution, even to our dismay of those institutions, is being forced to recognize that Bitcoin is just not going to go away. It's not just a phase. It's not a scam. It is a savings technology that works. And the people who understand that early and stacked accordingly are now able to use those savings to buy a home without selling a single sat. That is a genuinely new thing in the world. Goldman Sachs called the bottom this week. Fannie Mae backed a Bitcoin mortgage, and Peter Schiff is still posting. Stack your coins, hold your keys, and you're a millennial who's been priced out of housing your whole adult life. Maybe check your Bitcoin balance before you call your realtor. And if you want to be in the rooms where the next chapter of Bitcoin actually gets written, Mining Disrupt is where that happens. The world's largest Bitcoin mining expo, biggest names in the industry, cutting-edge rigs, Bitcoin and AI integration, live stream keynotes, and networking you cannot get anywhere else. Grab your tickets at miningdisrupt.com and use promo code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off. Do not sleep on this. You know what I keep thinking about? In 2012, you could buy a house for 30,000 Bitcoin, and today that same house is 5 Bitcoin. And now, officially with a government stamp on it, you can use your Bitcoin to buy that house without giving up a single sat. We are so early, and this is what early looks like. Not Lambo and laser eyes, a mortgage product, a Goldman Sachs note, a Fannie Mae approval. Boring, slow, institutional, but permanent. And that's how you win. Thanks for watching Simply Bitcoin's Satoshi. Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with your friends, drop a comment below. I read all of them. Follow me on X at InternetSophie. And as always, stack, slay, and stay bullish, baby.